Hi everyone. So I've started the video, I've gotten everything ready, and I can show you that it just took about a minute and 15 seconds to get it warm, maybe because I have an old microwave, but it feels nice and soft now. The cup is nice and warm, which is helpful. It'll retain some of the heat in here. I only warmed up 1/4 of the pound. I think that's going to be okay for now. And I set up my lamp on its side so that it's going to sweep light across the surface. I'm not going to be able to edit this video, so I'm going to do it quickly. And if you want to speed it up or go ahead, I'll let you know if that's something that we can that you can get away with. So the first thing I'm going to do is for this assignment I'm probably just going to be working in here in the maybe the 8x8 or 10x10 section of this 12-inch by 12-inch board. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to take off little pieces of it, and when I first break it up I like to knead it, even if it is warm. It makes it smoother. So then I'm going to take pinches of clay and I'm going to start squishing them down. Now I'm going to lay down a bed of clay. Okay. You know, about in the center. And I'm just going to do this fairly randomly. There's no real key to this other than just squishing it out. And if you have nice warm clay, this is very easy. If the clay is too hard, you're going to have a problem. So the clay, if you overheat it, it will dry out a little bit. So try not to overheat it. So keep an eye on it when it is in the microwave. And like I said, I put it in for 30 seconds. It wasn't warm enough, and I put it in for some more time. So the assignment here is to start a bas relief. Now, this is bas relief means low, mezzo relief means middle, and then alto relief means high. And reliefs are an extraordinarily important part of the history of sculpture. You can go back to ancient Egypt to see the hieroglyphs, which are all relief forms incised into slabs, and that's a pictorial form. And so all those reliefs, some are simple, some are complex, but it is part of the artistic tradition of sculpture. And then you go to Greece, where certainly it's part of architecture. The Parthenon, the friezes, a lot of the decorations on the Parthenon are reliefs. The frieze around the top, in low relief, and then the pediment sculptures, which are on the triangular part of the Parthenon, is technically in high relief. It's a almost fully round sculpture that is only meant to be seen from one side, so it's high, it's off the surface. Now in this case you can see that the light is sweeping across the surface here, and you can see all the bumps just from my fingerprints and my tool marks. If I were to change the angle, all of a sudden a lot of those disappear. So I'm going to keep my light down low so I can really see what I'm doing. And it doesn't need to be any smoother than this, because as we work we're going to be making more marks. But the assignment that I want you to do is create a non-solid representation. In other words, choose a subject like smoke or fire or water. You can be more specific than that, like I'm going to choose ocean water. You know, maybe you incorporate certain frothy nature to it, certain type of waves. You could, you know, do a lot of other subcategories as well, you know, clouds, anything you want to do, whatever seems correct to you. So I'm just going to do fire, I think. It's a fairly easy and obvious one. So the first thing I'd like to start out doing, now you could do it any way you want. The one thing that I don't want people to do is create a symbolic form. Like, for example, is if I decided to do water, I might do, okay, well, I'm going to do a droplet of water. And in some ways, that signifies water more than it represents water, right? And people look at that and they go, oh, yeah, he means water. It's not going to say, it's not going to make anybody believe that it's water. Not that that's a goal, but it is something where there is what I'm trying to get at is to have the formal sense of the material rather than the signification of it. And in some ways, something like this is going to say, okay, I mean water, and that's great, but in some ways it doesn't show you the materiality of the water, but in some ways it does. So what I'm actually looking for is a sense of shape and movement, and not just the symbol of water. But I'm going to do fire. So, you know, a fire is, you know, very often seen. Now, the way I like to do fire is to get these long strokes down. Now, my tripod is in the way. I have to get better at this. So, you know, maybe I want to get some flames going in through here. Maybe it's coming up like this. And I'm using this kind of sharpened chopstick, and I'm going to create a little fire. But I want to create a fire over the entire surface, you know? So I don't want to just have a little campfire here with sticks. I want to have as if the entire thing was visualizing fire. Or if I was to do water, I might try to create the surface of water, the way ripples might happen across the water. Or clouds, the same way. How would if I was to fill that whole place? I don't want the, you know, campfire down here, or a faucet coming off, or a cloud with rain droplets. That's too symbolic. What I'd rather see is to actually try to depict the water. And this becomes important because one of the things that you're going to do in the next assignment will be the leaf. And it's important that that becomes an object of three-dimensionality rather than a flat shape. And then symbolic forms often become very much two-dimensional. So you saw I drew it out. So let me just simplify this, because I don't want this video to be too long. But so I might simplify this into one kind of flame, right? And that flame, maybe it's doing this, right? And it has a little hiccup there, and then comes down, right? And comes down. So I'm just going to model that flame. That, what would you call that? A little flame, right? And there's things that you have to deal with this. Now, it's not just a two-dimensional, like I started with a line, but it's not just a two-dimensional plane. Every time I make a form, I have to remember that what happens is, if I put a plane like that, or a line like that, what I've done is I've carved a plane along that surface, right? And that angle, that plane has an angle towards the light. And in this case, it's, the light is up. And most light sources you'll find in your life are above your head, and that comes from the sun, But so any angle of surface that's pointed up is going to catch light. Any surface that's pointed down is going to catch shadow. So, and that's true on more complex forms like the flame. So the more I pitch it towards the light, the more it's going to catch light. The more I pitch it down towards the bottom, the more it's going to catch shadow. And that's the first thing you have to realize when you're dealing with the relief form. So I'm going to start building some clay in here into that space that I designated with my line. My clay is getting a little bit cold and harder, so I'm going to move a little quicker. And so I'm going to start by taking more beads of clay and filling up that space. Then what I'd like to do is, in a very graphic and simplified way, take a tool like this and then decide all of it, the angle by which it catches light. So if I do it like this, I might go in deeper, so it's catching light. And I don't know if you can see that, but in reality, this is catching more light around it. And I'm going to build up this center right here so that my angle can be more acute or point upwards further. So I might go like this. And then down here it'll be darker. So this shape will be darker. So I can use that to my advantage. The next thing I might do is start to harden up those lines or sharpen them up. Right? I might sharpen up those lines like this, and I can smooth them out a little bit with my finger. What I also like to play with relief is texture. So you see right in here, it's going to catch a lot of light right there. That's going to make it bright and flame-like. It's going to catch light. Down below is dark. And that contrast is what's going to make it look bright. You see that right there? That contrasted shadow underneath it is going to make this upper flame look a lot brighter. And it's also in a concave shape, which tends to make it brighter as well. So I'm going to fill in a little bit of area up here to make a shadow. And I'm going to build it up and then point it down. So now I've really got that angle. The other thing I like to use with relief is texture. So I might pick out this flame a little bit using a little bit of texture. That's just something you can play with. Right? Might be working in this case. Never sure how it's gonna work out. So what you do is you do a little bit of an experiment. You put down a form, just like with drawing. You put down a form, and then you make an assessment. So what I might do here is smooth it out, really just to catch the light a little bit better. Right? So I'm not sure if that's coming out or not, but to me, it's starting to look a little bit more like a flame, right? And I could play with this all day, just smushing it around a little bit. And then maybe make another one over here. I think what I want to do is make this a little bit, I want this to be brighter up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up some clay above that, right? So that I have a shadow around it. And I go up, up, up. Right? And then maybe. So in other words, what you're always doing is playing with the angle. You're drawing with the angle of that clay. And I think that makes sense, with the angle of those forms. Yeah, it seems like it's working. I've done many reliefs like this, and this can be a very effective way of doing it. And so you're with this process, you're constantly going between the ideas of making the actual form that you want, this rounded surface, and the angles by which the light would be coming down. So you're always paying attention to both those things. The next thing you want to think about is on these forms is the relative sharpness and softness of them, right? So if I want this form to be sharp right there, then that's going to have a greater contrast between the light and the dark. If I want it softer, maybe I'm making clouds or a softer flame in this case, or water. Maybe I want it softer, so I just round it over and I can see a lot more transition. But one of the good practices with relief is to set up your light and shadow structure right off the bat by having a system of angles. You know, this area should be a down plane, this area up plane, down plane, up plane, down plane. And if you organize that beautifully across your surface, then you've created a beautiful composition. And that beautiful composition, in terms of the way it goes back and forth and weaves its way across the surface, will then translate to a compelling surface. If you then take that system and translate that into the idea of that non-solid form, it could be anything you decide, and then decide what it should look like. And anything can be translated into a black and white image, and that's basically what you're doing, is you're creating a black and white image filtered through its pitch towards the light. Down plane, up plane, down plane, up plane. And in theory, you could take any black and white photograph and just translate it that way. I'm not sure exactly. I've actually experimented a little bit with that, and it's fairly true. You could actually model almost anything with that scheme. Okay, so that's what I want you to do. I think that kind of looks like a flame. I'd have to spend more time on it, but I don't want to make this video 2 hours long. But I would do this same thing over and over again. I'm just going to move the camera a little bit to see if we can, if you could see this a little bit better. Sometimes, again, the movement of a camera will help you to see something three-dimensionally. All right, so I'm going to see what I can do about moving it around. It's on a tripod, so. Okay. All right. Maybe I should be filming this from a lower angle, but that's what it is. Okay, so you were to fill up your entire, it looks like about 8 by 8, or approximate size of your hand. Fill that space, and you know, not just a single portion in here in the center, but fill all of it with whatever material that you've decided. Smoke, fire, rain, clouds, water, foam, whatever it is, whatever you've decided, okay? All right, thank you very much.